everybody, welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I have a very interesting video for you today. Okay, the video that we're going to be talking about is rope work, obviously, and more specifically it's a topic that could be a little bit debatable. The reason I say that this topic could be debatable is because it's based on people's opinions. But let me get to the point that I'm trying to make, and let's talk about the topic of this video. The topic of the video today is, in my opinion, the 3 most important knots that everybody should know. If you're going to watch anything that I've ever published, any video, any information, anything, please pay close attention to this video, because these 3 knots, I think, are the ones that I use the most, and I want to share them, and I want to make sure that everybody knows them. If you're going to learn anything or remember anything that I've said, these 3 are the ones that I hope you remember. So again, this is a topic that could be debatable, because these knots that I'm saying are so important. They're just my opinion. But anyway, I think it'll make for a good video. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the video. And I hope you agree with me about the knots that I've chose. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Okay, so let's get to it. The first knot. 1954. There was an excavation done on the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Khufu. Now, for those of you who don't understand who Khufu was, he was an Egyptian pharaoh who was responsible for the Great Pyramids at Giza. So again, in 1954, there was an excavation done on his solar ship. And on his solar ship, during the excavation, they found a knot on the rigging of the ship. And that knot was my #1 choice, the Bowline. So let me take this rope and show you what the Bowline is. Okay, so first of all, you have in this hand, the one that I'm wiggling, you have what they call the working end of the rope. And then this end of the rope is what they refer to as the standing end. So what I want to do to make the Bowline, let me turn around so you can see a very good view of my hands. Okay, so my right hand over here, I have the working end of the rope. To tie the Bowline, I want to take the working end and make a small loop. Okay, you see that? So we have a nice little loop. From here, I'm going to take this tail, this working end, and the old story was that the rabbit would come out of his hole. See that? He would go underneath the tree or the log, and then he would go back into his hole. Now from here, if you pull the log, if you want to call it that, this would create the Bowline. Now of course I made this one a little small. Let me redo that. Okay, so again, you take the working end. If you hear all this noise in the background, it's my dog. She's like scratching and stuff. So you take the working end, you make a loop. The rabbit comes out of his hole. He goes around the tree, back into his hole, then you pull the tree. This is the Bowline. This is an excellent knot. You know, earlier I was talking about the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Khufu. You know, when they did the excavation on his solar ship, they found this knot on the rigging, right? Well, for those of you who might not understand how old this could be, is, you know, Khufu died in 2566 BC. So if that story is true, gosh, you know, this is an ancient knot. The cool thing I like about the Bowline is it works very good under a load. As you pull this standing end, you would see that it's connected, and it would pull against these loops and it would tighten very tight. It's a very good knot. A very good knot. One of the downsides to the Bowline is if it wiggles, it sometimes has a tendency to come unloose. So the Bowline works best when it has some kind of load on it. It's a very good knot. Some of the good things about the bowline are the tighter you pull, the tighter it gets. It's not going to come undone. It's a very tight knot. And, you know, I've used this a lot of times to pull cars out of the ditch and things like that. And you could put a tremendous amount of load on it. And, you know, it's kind of nice because after you tow something or pull something, it's very easy to untie. And the reason that it's easy to untie is because inside of this loop right here you have 2 ropes. And inside this other loop you only have 1. So to undo it, you just flip right here and the knot will come undone very easily. So that's my number 1 knot, the bowline. So again, I take the working end, I come here, I take the rabbit, I run out of the hole, under the log, back in the hole, and voila, that's my number 1 knot, the bowline. Okay, the second knot on my list is when you want to take 2 pieces of cordage and put them together. This is referred to as a fisherman's knot, but some people would refer to it as an angler's knot. They call it an English knot, a halibut knot. Some people call it a waterman's knot, but it's a very simple knot to tie, okay? And I refer to it as a fisherman's knot. So I use 2 different colors here so that you can see clearly what's going on here. Again, this knot is designed for connecting 2 sizes of cordage that are similar in size, and it's very, very simple. I take the first line and I make a simple overhand knot. See that? Now, the side of the overhand knot that this tail is pointing out is the side I'm going to insert my second rope through. So in other words, I'm not inserting it this way. I'm inserting it on the same side as what the tail was. Now, the green is going to tie around the orange, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the orange. I'm going to make a simple overhand knot around the green. And you notice that I leave some pretty decent sized little tails on there. That's because if this knot has any kind of tension, you know, if I start to pull, it'll tighten against itself. And then when I'm done, I can pull these tails and undo the knot. Now, one of the downsides to this knot is if your rope had like grease or something, oil or something like that on it, this might slip. So in the event that that happens, you might want to use a double fisherman's knot. Now I show that in some of my other videos. Okay, so again, we're going to start by creating a simple overhand knot here. See? The side that the tail comes out is the side I'm going to go in. Then I'm going to make another overhand knot around the other rope. Pull them together, and that creates a fisherman's knot. Very good knot to use when you have a rope, you're trying to make a ridge line or something like that, and your rope's not quite long enough to reach the tree or whatever. You need to connect 2 pieces of rope together. Works very good. Something else that I like about it is if you use your tails, you know, if you make tails that are long enough, it'll give you something to grab a hold of, and it'll help you to undo it if it's really tight. And I've had a lot of success untying this knot. Don't have too many problems. Okay, now like I mentioned earlier, if the rope was slippery or something like that, oily or something like that, and you end up using a double fisherman's knot, and it puts, you know, if you put a big load on that one, it's going to be difficult to undo, much more so than this one. So let me show you another angle of me tying this knot. Okay, so again, this is referred to as a fisherman's knot. So we'll start with orange. We'll make an overhand knot with orange. Now the tail comes out on this side, so we're going to enter on that side. Orange is going to slightly tighten around green. Green is going to go around orange, making a simple overhand knot, nothing too crazy. Make sure you have good lengths of on your tails, and then slowly pull the knot together. Now I'm going to pull very tight, and that's what the fisherman's knot looks like. It's a self-binding knot. It binds on itself. And again, when you're finished, a lot of times you can just pull these tails, kind of wiggle this thing, and sometimes they'll come undone. Like I said, the downside to this is if you have like some slippery, oily rope or something like that, wet rope, something like that, it might slip. Use a double fisherman's, and I show that in my other videos. So that's the fisherman's knot, and that's my number 2 choice. Okay, let's get to my third choice. My third most favorite knot of all times. Okay, in 1931, there was an Austrian mountaineering guy, and there was an article published in a mountaineering magazine, and it was a fellow by the name of Karl Prusik. Okay, now he developed a knot that will be used to adhere itself or attach itself to a larger piece of rope. Now I'm going to refer to this paracord as cord, and this rope behind me I'm going to refer to as rope. Okay, so the Prusik is designed to take a cord and lock against a rope. Okay, so I have a small piece of parachute cord here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create just a very simple fisherman's knot to start, and I just showed you that a minute ago. So we're going to use this to create a small loop, and I'll explain what I'm doing here in a second. Okay, so there's my fisherman's knot. Now I have made a small loop. Now to make this Prusik work, I'm going to take this rope, and the cord is going to lay itself on top of the rope, and then I'm going to reach through and pull this in through. So I have a lark's foot or a lark's head. Okay, once you establish this lark's foot or this lark's head, you're going to take this bottom end and run it around again and out again. Okay, from here you have just created a Prusik. Now, Prusik, like I mentioned, is a knot that will take a cord and it'll bind the cord on the rope. See that? I'm pulling down on it. This is an excellent knot to work, to know. It's very popular in climbing applications. You'll see it in canyoneering applications, mountaineering, caving, rope rescue. Some kayakers use it. You might find it, you know, survival type, you know, search and rescue. I may have mentioned that earlier. But one of the good things about this Prusik is it does not cause any damage to the rope. Now, if it starts to slip, which is very rare, but if it does start to slip, it will actually damage the cord itself. You know, the heat will create it'll create heat as it slips, and it'll damage the cord. Now, another thing to mention is right now I have 2 wraps around here, and this Prusik is fairly strong, but if I want to make it bite more, I'll make a 3rd wrap or a 4th wrap, depending on how much you want it to bite. Now, the Prusik, some of the strengths are that it is very inexpensive. Okay, it doesn't cost much because you're buying cord instead of a set of Jumars, you know, or some Petzl ascenders. Those are 75 bucks a pop. So Prusik works very good versus a mechanical device. Now, some of the downsides to the Prusik versus the Jumars is if this rope is really like frozen, full of ice and stuff like that, this Prusik might not bite as good. So in a scenario like that, you might need some mechanical device that'll bite into the rope. Now, the downside to those mechanical devices, those Jumars and those Petzl ascenders, is that they cause damage to the rope if they slip, because they actually bite into the rope, where these Prusiks won't. Now, another positive about the Prusik is they're bidirectional. So, in other words, I can pull up and it'll lock, or I can pull down and it'll lock. In either case, the Prusik will lock. If I use a pair of Jumars, they're one directional. They only go up or down, whichever way they're set to the rope. That's the only direction they'll go. Prusik, you can loosen it, move it up or down. You can pull up and it'll lock, or pull down and it'll lock. Like I said, it's bidirectional. So it's a very good thing. It's great for emergencies. So a lot of rock climbers, you'll see them out there at the crag, and they'll have on their harness, they'll have a small, you'll look at the side of their harness and you'll see that they have a small piece of cordage, you know, tied around the side of them. And but yeah, that's what the Prusik is good for. That's what they use that cordage for. Is if they get stuck on a root somewhere and they need to bail off or something, they'll use a Prusik. Okay, so again, you can put a tremendous amount of pressure on this Prusik and it'll grab, it won't bind. So I'm gonna put some body weight on this. See, this is the end here. I'm just sitting on this Prusik. No problem at all. That's all my body weight. There's no camera tricks or nothing like that. I'm hanging on this thing. And the cool thing about this is, in some ways it's similar to the Bowline. In what I mean by that is the fact that you can put a tremendous amount of load on it and it's still very easy to undo. Now, the Prusik, the cleaner that you make it, the better it will work. See how clean those loops are? That's a good looking Prusik. That's what the back side looks like. If you have it all messed up and filthy, a dirty knot, as I would say, it's not going to work as good as you might hope that it would work. So let me show you another angle, and I'll actually tie it again for you. So let me remove this off. We'll do a brand new one. Okay, so you have a rope here that you want to connect a piece of cord to. So you take your cord, you lay it over the rope, you reach through and pull both of these ends through, and you basically create a lark's head or a lark's foot. And all the Prusik is a lark's foot done 2 or 3 times. That's really all it is. You wrap it around again, pull the tails through, wrap them around again, pull everything through again. Now you see how ugly it is right now. You want to clean it up before you can use it. I mean, if you had to use it, it would probably bite, but you know, I would tend to want to see something nice and clean like this. But that's your Prusik. So again, when you pull downward or upward, it binds on the rope. See, now I'll pull upward. It binds on the rope. And the cool thing, like I mentioned, is it'll slide up or down as long as there's not any kind of tension. But then when you need it, you pull. It's kind of like a seat belt. You know, it'll lock when you pull tight, when you pull hard. See, I'm pulling on this with my hands pretty hard, and it's not budging. And again, come up there and loosen it, fix it up, clean it up. That's Prusik. And that's my number 3 favorite knot that I think everybody needs to know. Prusik. Okay, everybody, I have 3 knots working right now. The first one up top is a Bowline. The second one on this loop is a Fisherman's Knot. And the third one is a Prusik. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my weight onto this loop, which will put it on the Prusik, and it'll also put it on the Bowline. So all 3 of these knots are going to be under a load. Then what I'll show is how easy it will be to undo them. So I'm standing on this Prusik, jumping up and down with all my body weight. Now, I weigh about 170 pounds. I'm going to get the Prusik a little higher. So again, I weigh about 170 pounds. See if I can get my foot that high. So there you have it. You see me hanging on this rope. It's all my weight is on this anchor. I have a Bowline right here. Again, I'm standing on a Prusik, and part of my loop is a Fisherman's. So now, let me take this all down. And let's see how easy they are to undo. First, we'll start with the Prusik. There's the Prusik after it's had a load on it. Again, I weigh about 170 pounds. Push this down. Looks like it's coming out pretty easily. No problem at all. Everything looks good. Now, let's try the Fisherman's Knot. A little bit tight. Let's try to wiggle that thing. Sometimes I bite them with my teeth. Careful not to let your teeth fall, you know, or your mouth shut quickly and damage your teeth. This one's a little bit difficult to get out, but I did get it out. Now let's look at the last one. This was the Bowline. Okay, that's what it looks like. It had a pretty good load on it. This one's easy. Flick that, pull that, Bowline's gone. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye. Well, everybody, I want to say thank you for watching my video, taking the time out of your day. I hope that you found some good information in this video that was useful. And, you know, there's so many knots out there that are good knots, and it was very difficult for me to try to break it down to the top 3, but in my opinion those are the ones I think everybody should know. So if you like the video and you agree that these knots are good ones to know, please leave a comment. And if there's another knot that you might use that you think might be a little more common or something like that, please let me know in a comment. And speaking of comments, thank you everybody for the comments, the kind words, the support, emails, private messages, everything that you guys give me. I really appreciate it. It's very difficult for me to keep up with you guys though sometimes. I try very hard, and sometimes it takes me some time to get back to you. It's not that I don't think of it. It's not that I don't read the comments. I do read them daily, everything. And sometimes it takes me a little while to get back. So if that happens to you, please don't think that I don't care about your comment, because I do. I just sometimes takes me a little time, and I will get back. And I want to say thanks again for watching, taking the time, showing support to my channel. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to share the video. Thumbs up. Please give me a thumbs up if you like the content. And as always, have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.